Hello world of YouTube, Archie, horror stories, lyrics, poems. I finally went through some of my stories. I found one that was inspired by a dream I had, probably in one of my weird dream sessions. And I forgot I wrote this story. Like I said, I was going through my stuff to get out a story that I wasn't going to originally do, but I found this one. And come to find out, not too long ago, I was watching celebrity ghost stories, and this woman was, I think, lured by a man into an apartment in, I forget what town it was, but they went to this apartment, and she said when she got to it, there was candles everywhere, and at that there was a satanic pentagram and all kinds of stuff leading right to the devil. And she was standing there with this guy in the apartment. She was having visions of something, of her boyfriend, I believe it was, and he told her if he wanted to see him or whatnot. I think that's what the case was, that she had to step inside the pentagram, and this would help her vision her boyfriend, which he was dead. So with nothing to lose, I guess she wanted to go through with it. I don't know, I think the guy might have lured her into this, not as a, date rape or something stupid like that of sex, but more or less, like I said, to bring someone back from the dead. So as she stepped into the pentagram, not only that, but fearing the worst to come out of it, something did come out of it, and the guy finished closing the pentagram because it was not completely closed of the red circle. And she literally as soon as he ended up trying to close it, she tried stepping out of it, because she felt this, of course, demonic feeling, evil presence, and she got stuck, and her boyfriend came up in as a ghost or whatnot, and she saw him, and I don't know, she got scared, and all of a sudden she broke free from the force that was holding her, I believe, in it, and began to run towards the front door. Now in the mix of all that, a dog came out of nowhere, and it was practically hallucinations, I would call it, and the thing was growling, of course, and snarling and evil, and tried biting her, and it was just as freaky as the story itself, and it's even more freakier the way I found out this dog came and did what it did. And I had two dreams that I think the story I have right now, I don't remember if I put it in, but I think I did. But the first dream I had about dogs coming up out of a junkyard, like I said in one of my weird dreams I had videos. Then I went to the edge of the place, of the junkyard that I wasn't supposed to cross over, which the owner said. And of course the junkyard started filling up with water. I was driving in a goddamn Ford Pinto with that. And, the car got embodied with water, and I'm sitting there on the roof, and there was like a telephone line going across the yard of the junkyard, and me and a couple buddies that were in the car jumped up and hanged on it. And these three half red-blooded Doberman pinchers started jumping up out of the water trying to bite me and my buddies in their ass. And they were cut in half, literally. And the second dream is what comes out of this story. And like I say, finding it now and hearing this celebrity ghost story that this woman had is kind of, excuse me, freaking me out right now, because like I said, I forgot I wrote this one. I mean, I've been going by it, not reading it, but to make what the story makes sense of, that dog that was in that house was a hell dog, meant and sent from the devil himself. So this woman supposedly actually met the devil, and when she tried to run out, which she was in human form, of course, but trying to run away from him, he sent out the hounds of hell. A hound from hell. And I'm thinking these two dreams are pretty much what was telling me in my dreams of what these dogs meant, because this dog in this story I'm about to read, unlike the other three, cut in half Doberman pinchers, their guts and intestines hanging out, their hips and everything cut off, and they're still jumping out of the water trying to bite me and my buddies in the ass. After that I woke up and like, what the fuck was that? And on this one, it was more or less, a dog charging. But I'm gonna tell you that I'm gonna get on with the story. And in the beginning of the story is the actual dream that I had. I mean, I put in there a family of a woman, her husband and son at the house. But what I'm going to read now is the actual dream of what I had. And I was the person in it, standing where these people were standing, and how I explain it. But like I say, in the dream, I'm the one that had the Rottweiler. It was a Rottweiler. It looked like a Rottweiler, but it was all deformed. A deformed dog, you can say. And like I say, I was standing there at this window in my dream looking, and all this happened. So let me get on with the story. Another horror story, this one inspired by a dream. Like I say, and this is called A Deadly Bye. And a woman screams. The woman screamed as she saw a deformed Rottweiler charge from the hills of the woods in her backyard. It was 7:30 p.m. Her and her husband and son just got done eating dinner. The plate she was drying off smashed to the floor. Her husband and son rushed to the kitchen to see what happened. As soon as they ran through the threshold of the kitchen, the dog smashed through the glass, the sliding door, and lunged at the man. Catching him at the throat, the dog dug his teeth in deep. So the boy and the mother screamed in terror. The man tried to fight the dog, but it was abnormal, and the strength of the dog was unbelievable. The woman tried to smash the dog in the head with a frying pan, but the more she hit, the more the dog would shake its head back and forth with the man's throat in his mouth. She finally stopped, and all of a sudden she heard the sound of the muscle in the neck ripping. Then with one huge tug, the dog tore the neck off the man out. He fell to the floor, wiggling like a person having a seizure. Then his pants started to soil with shit and piss as he lay dead, and the smell of feces odored the room. Then with no hesitation the dog finished the woman and child, then ran back to the woods up the hill. The woman's sister came to visit. It was 2 weeks later. As she walked through the front door, the curiosity was running mad through her head as why of seeing lights on in the driveway as she pulled up. During the day, and the car being in the driveway, when she knew someone was working at that time, and there was no such movement in the house. The house was well out in the woods, and if you didn't pay attention for the driveway, you'd miss it. When she walked in, the smell hit her hard. The breeze of the back porch door being busted sent the fall air whipping. The decomposed bodies right to her stomach sent her right back out the front door and puking. Fear went through her body as it would if you thought you were going to face jail for the first time. She grabbed a hanky from her car and went back in. At the same time, she called the police. As the desk cop asked for the address, the lady screamed and dropped the cell phone, screaming the address. And there laid her sister and her husband, her sister and her family in a pool of blood. She ran outside, fell to the ground, and broke down. Finally, the cops showed. They rushed to comfort the lady on the ground. They tried to lift her, but she was limp, with deep emotional anguish and sorrow. They called the ambulance and had her taken to the hospital. The procedures of autopsy, fingerprinting, blood samples, hair samples, the whole 9 yards of an investigation went through after a week and a half. They came up with the conclusion that a wild bear broke in because of the fact it smelled food. And being unharmed for the same freak accident like this had no way of defending themselves. And they say they should ban guns. Well, the time carried on. The town cleaned up the house and put it up for auction because no relatives wanted the house. A real estate got the house, and after a month it was up for sale. The town never did mention the incident that happened. A few years went by. Ted went to look at the house. An ace hunter with game finally saved enough money to buy a house in the woods. After looking over the internet, found the house at a reasonable price. Him and a couple buddies was on their way from the Detroit area. They reached the road and started to count driveways. Finally reaching it, pulled up to the house, brought a gleam to their eyes. Excitement rolled through their bodies like a shiver after looking at a classic car. Souped up. They all stepped in after examining the 3-bedroom, 2 full bath with a jacuzzi, big basement, swimming pool that would hold all their game heads. and in the basement fit a pool table and a full bar. They all stared in amazement. The realtor showed up. It was June 1st, and him and Ted signed the deal. By mid-July, the trio was moved in. They had started to get acquainted with the town. It was a big town for being out in the wooded area. A few nightclubs, a small movie theater, a drive-in, shopping stores, a couple factories for work, and what Ted loved the most, a sporting goods store. Hitting the night spots, Ted and his buddies started searching the women. It wasn't long before the party started and everyone started to show up at the house. In between work and the hangouts, Ted and his buddies started to do what they came for. Start setting up the hunting site for this season's game search. They were deep in the woods with four-wheelers carrying supplies for the building, finding 3 good trees to set their own bench, to sit the building, to sit, and the building began. Starting at 6 in the morning and ending before dusk, the setup was perfect. Tomorrow they would check the view and see what will show up and break in the new hunting spot. Around noon, the boys packed up another lunch in camouflage gear and walked to their Sunday worship, a hunter's chapel. They all got in position, and there they waited, using the powerful scopes, full view, 20/20 binoculars. All 3 scoped the scene. All of a sudden, one of Ted's buddies used a signal to get the other's attention and pointed in a direction of a running animal, not full speed, but like in a trot. They all looked in confusion as the weird-looking thing trotted along the woods. Its deformed body wouldn't let their minds figure out what it was. Even having the sight they had with the binoculars, the thing just wouldn't click in their memory. Then all of a sudden the thing disappeared. They all started to swing their heads to find it, but it was gone. They all looked at each other and shrugged their shoulders. They called it a day. Spotting a few deers and the thing that still haunted their minds, they put it in the back of their minds and headed home. A few weeks went by and their thoughts of the day started to fade. It was the beginning of October. Ted found a girl that was falling for him, and he felt the same way. After meeting 3 months ago, they were going steady. And what made her so special, she loved hunting just as much as him. He took her to the hunting spot to make his sitting bench bigger for the both of them. When he was done, it was big enough to sleep on. They snuggled up and began to make love. Getting to the climax, the finishing, Ted happened to look to the woods and saw the same weird animal or whatever it was trotting along again. He kept going, but after the same time reached in the bag he brought just in case things like this happens. His girl was wondering what he was doing and looked in the direction and saw the thing. She shivered and started to get chills up her spine by looking at this thing. And Ted and her both stopped what they were doing. He picked up the binoculars and began to look, following it. She also had a set. As they kept looking and following it, the thing stopped dead in its tracks and began to seek the noise. Turned slowly like a radar. Ted put his lips and quietly said to his girl, "Shh." He picked up the binoculars and pointed at the creature. After a few seconds of scoping the scene, Ted put down the binoculars, and his girl looked of horror when she saw Ted's face. Got white. He laid on her with his head next to hers, just rubbing the side of her head. Finally, he looked up and saw the thing was gone. He got up and dressed and got out of the sleeping bag. And on the way back in the four-wheeler, Ted's girl asked what he saw. He told her nothing. Don't worry. So they let it go. When they got back, Ted finally said, fuck it, and told his buddies and girl what he had saw. It looked like a Rottweiler, but the head was deformed. The jaw was huge, and the eyes, one was slanted up toward the ear and towards the nose like it was looking mad. The other eye just all fucked up and wounded. They all just sat there staring at one another confused. Then they talked, wondering where it came from. They ordered food, then went to bed, and that night Ted jumped up out of a sound sleep, saying, "Oh, fuck." His girl jumped and his buddies called from downstairs from their rooms and asked if he was alright. Yeah, he yelled back. His girl didn't have to ask. She just held him and knew it was a bad dream, and started rubbing his head as he did the other day and made him forget. The next afternoon, Ted looked out his back porch, sliding doors, and stared into the woods of the hills. His buddies went to town, and his girl slept. He stood there for a long time, sometimes thinking he saw this thing. But the stands were way out in the woods, and maybe it didn't need to come toward this way. Anyway, he thought hunting is 4 weeks away, and he would shoot it. Oh, wait a minute, I messed that up. Sorry. He thought that in a couple days he'll be out, and he just had picked up a new gun. Messed that up. Sorry, I wrote something over here, and he would shoot it, then hang it on his wall with all the other games he owned. For days left. 4 days. Ted said to his beautiful Rose, as she woke up and came downstairs, is what he called her so often. Ted and his buddies were cleaning and getting ready the guns for the hunt. It was 7 p.m. and everything was set for the big day. The pizza came that they ordered at 7:25. They sat in the kitchen to eat. Then at the same time as the 4 other family members years ago sat at that table, the thing once again charged towards down the hill. Ted was looking out the window and jumped up screaming, lock and load. They all scrambled for their guns. Ted pulled his girl to go to the cellar. As soon as they went to grab their guns, the dog smashed through the glass like he had done before, lunged toward one of Ted's buddies as he pointed the gun towards the creature's head. No time to shoot, and it clamped on the neck once again. He screamed and fought, but it was too late to save him. The same noise of torn neck muscles ripped through the air. Ted took a shot, and so did his other buddy, but the bullets did nothing. The beast looked up and saw Ted's girl shut the cellar door, and it bashed its head instantly into the door as she closed it. Splinters of wood went everywhere. Then it smashed again. It finally broke through and went downstairs. Ted's girl hid. Oops, excuse me, I missed her. The splinters, wood went everywhere, and Ted and his friend continued to shoot, but nothing would stop it. I messed that up. Then it smashed again. It broke through and went downstairs. Ted's girl hid. The lights were off, and Ted screamed no. As he saw the thing go downstairs, Ted's other buddy was screaming out the front door. Ted told him to help, and he kept running in the night. Ted didn't hear his girl scream, so he hoped she was still alive. He pointed his gun towards the door and yelled to her not to move. He heard the thing growling. Then he stood at the top of the stairs, wondering if he should turn the light on. But without hesitation, he walked slow down the stairs, whispering, "Come on, motherfucker. Where are you?" Ted stood at the bottom of the stairs, with his back against the wall, facing the dark. Ted's girl was in a steel locker, and the beast was in front of it, sniffing and wiping its nose against it, snorting and growling. Ted could hear the whimpering and sniffing of his girl. Then all of a sudden, the creature leaped out at Ted, and he turned the gun sideways, just in time to catch the jaws of the clamping to his throat. Ted's girl screamed as she heard Ted struggle against this thing. The light from upstairs shined on its face. Ted screamed in fear, fighting as he heard. As hard as he could. Then he saw something he couldn't believe. To see in his life, the jaws of the beast started to bend the barrels of the double-barrel shotgun. Ted's girl ran out of the locker, grabbed the bat as she fished around for it, then ran to the thing, and as hard as she could, she slammed the head of the beast. The thing broke loose of its grip and turned slowly towards the girl. She dropped the bat and cried, "Oh no." The gun backfired and then hit the wall beside him of Ted because of it being bent. The thing looked like to say, "What the fuck are you doing?" Then its mouth opened and let out a demonic screeching sound and leaped at her. Ted yelled, Ted yelled, "Duck." No, dried mouth time. Should have grabbed a cup of water. She dropped with no problem. The thing smashed into the locker. She ran to Ted. The thing ran up. Then they ran upstairs. The thing screeching again in anger, a sound they never heard of. Ted and his girl screamed as they ran out of the cellar. Ted ran straight for his guns, pulled out a buffalo rifle. The thing leaped into the kitchen, smashing into the cabinets and sink. It turned so quick, it was on top of Ted's girl's back, inches away from sinking the jaws and teeth into her fragile neck. Ted's shot blew up the head of this creature. Screaming as he shot, the head went all over. Ted's girl was crying, but she made no sound. Her body shook with the thing bouncing on her, then went limp. Then she cried out, "Ted." Ted threw the thing off and pulled her up, saying, "It's over. It's over." Ted heard his buddy down the driveway screaming help to no one. Just kneeled in the middle of the road, crying and screaming help. Ted never did ask why his buddy didn't call the cops right away. But when they got there, their eyes were like a kid seeing his first present that they always wanted. They took care of the victims and took the thing to be examined. Ted got a call one day from the examiner's office telling him, "I went to get lunch. When I came back to start the autopsy, the body turned to dust." Ted said goodbye and sat there mesmerized. He could not believe what he just heard. All the cops that thought they had an investigation here were all struck with some kind of feeling that they would never explain. His girl just coming back to reality of this thing being on her back. Asked him what's wrong. He told her. I guess we'll never know. The end. Like I say, this story was inspired by a dream I had. And like I said, of that celebrity ghost story. I mean, did I have dreams of the hounds of hell haunting me? For what reasons, I don't know. The devil's dogs. All I know, it just inspired me to write this story. Like I said, I forgot I wrote this too. I wrote this back in when I was in jail, go figure. But the dream I had when I was like, I don't know, in my early 20s maybe. So that was the late 90s. But I mean, other than that, there's another short horror story that I love to share with you. I hope you enjoyed it. Until the next video, YouTube and the world, I hope your new year is great. I'm trying to make mine great, but it don't look too good. Other than that, till the next video, people, take care. Out.